Hi, I'm Jami Shapiro, and welcome to Grandma Has ADHD. I'm a certified senior move manager and owner of Silver Linings Transitions, where I help people navigate life's big transitions. But here's the thing, I spent years helping families move through change while completely missing the pattern that was running through my own life. I'm the daughter of two ADHD parents, the mother of three ADHD children, and yep, I have ADHD too. For years, I didn't have the language or understanding for what that meant. But becoming an ADHD coach and specialist, that's been absolutely game changing. Not just for how I work with my clients, but for how I relate to my family and honestly, for how I understand myself. I even wrote a book about it called This Explains So Much. This podcast is for all of us who are discovering ADHD later in life. Each week, I bring you conversations with industry experts and people sharing their own ADHD journeys, real stories, real strategies, and often a little too much information. If you're loving what you're hearing, please share this podcast, leave us a review, and find me at jamishapiro.me. That's JamiShapiro.me. Whether you're over 50 and just getting diagnosed, or you're recognizing patterns you've lived with your whole life, this is your space to navigate ADHD with others who get it. So grab your coffee and get comfortable and let's dive in. So if you've been listening to the Grandma Has ADHD podcast for any length of time, you have heard me speak about the Sparkler Society and how it's coming in July. Well, I am really excited because waiting is horrible, even for me. And in June, we are opening our doors for a trial run. This is going to be absolutely free. It's an opportunity for you to join the community, find out what it's about, and help us kind of work out the kinks. So if you like what you hear, if you're looking for authenticity, you want to come as you are, you want to get your shit together with other people who want to get their shit together, then I would love for you to find me at jamishapiro.me. That's JAMISHAPIRO.me, and find the Sparkler Society where you can join the waitlist. And in June, we're going to kick it off with our first 14-day challenge. We are going to tackle the bathroom. And if you join us, you're going to know why we picked the bathroom. So I cannot wait to get started. This community is going to change your life. So hope you enjoy the podcast. Can't wait to meet you in person. I am so excited about today's guest because she is the real deal. A clinician who doesn't just understand ADHD from the outside looking in, she lives it. And that changes everything. Today, I am welcoming Kristen Baird Goldman to the show. Kristen is a licensed marriage and family therapist, a registered art therapist, a certified ADHD clinical services specialist, and a certified integrative mental health practitioner. Whew, okay, which means she is bringing all of it to the table. She is the founder and clinical director of Baird Integrated Therapy in Los Angeles, and she has built something truly special. A practice that treats the whole person, mind, brain, body, and nervous system. But here is what makes Kristen stand out, even in a field full of really talented people. She weaves together talk therapy, art therapy, neurofeedback, CBT, ACT, and even the gut-brain connection into one cohesive, creative, neuro-affirming approach. She is not just checking boxes. She is connecting dots. She's also the author of the CBT Workbook for Adult ADHD, a featured speaker at CHAD and the Executive Function Summit, and she's been making waves with her work on the intersection of hormones, midlife, and ADHD in women, which, hello, that's exactly who we are. And she has therapy dogs and backyard chickens. I mean, could she be any more an ADHD person? Hi.
Hi, Jami.
I'm always so surprised when I read the on and on and on about the accomplishments. And it is so typical for someone, with ADHD. They've either overachieved and they just can't stop, or they struggle, and so here we are.
Here we are.
Category. So welcome. I met
Thank you.
I met Kristen at the ABSARD conference. I think we were
hmm
having lunch together or something, and the topic of the podcast came up. And I always love when I meet a woman who is middle aged, who has ADHD, is a professional willing to talk about it. So you're like the perfect storm of guests for us. So welcome.
Good. Thank you. It's nice to be here.
It's nice to have you. So, first and foremost, I always like to get to hear your ADHD journey, how you discovered you had ADHD, and what brought you into working in this field.
Yes. So I self-diagnosed myself in when I was in my mid 40s. It was pretty much towards the end or after graduate school. My first career was in architecture and design, and I minored in psychology when I was a design major. And so I always had a curiosity and a fondness for human behavior and why people do what they do. And I brought
Mhm.
it into my work as an architectural designer. I worked commercially for years for big companies like Microsoft and Johnson and Johnson and Pfizer and whatnot. And it got to a point, I had my son in my late 30s, and it was right around the time where '09, the big market
Mhm.
crash, so to speak, occurred.
Mhm.
And particularly real estate and construction and all was hit really hard. And I was already in that last year contemplating making a change. I'd been in the industry for over 15 years. I achieved my goals. I was a director in design, but it wasn't fulfilling or satisfying anymore. I wasn't really doing a lot of design anymore. It was very business development heavy, very corporate politic playing, which I never did well. I don't know many ADHDers who do that well. And having my son and thinking like I'm working like a dog 50 hours a week for what? Right? For walls and furniture and it was not resonating with me at all anymore. And so in that last year, I was actually looking into going back to school, graduate school for psychology, and double minoring in art therapy because I wanted to bring my strengths and gifts of being an artist my whole life into the field of sciences, and something I dreamed about doing for such a long time. And at that point, I was about to turn 40 and was like, it's time. It's time to make a change. And I wanted to be home for my kid, and I wanted to do something more meaningful. So the fact that everything happened in the financial world the way it did was my exit strategy, and
Mhm.
it worked great. And I had suspected ADHD over the years and, was familiar with it. But anytime I mentioned it to a doctor or somebody, and everyone would say, You're too accomplished. You're doing,
Mhm.
no, that's
Mhm.
not
Mhm.
possible. Right.
Uh, uh-huh. No, you can't be smart. I mean, I'm sorry, you can't have ADHD because you made good grades or you're a
Yes.
doctor or you're a this. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And honestly, in school, I didn't do well until college. I
Right.
hated school as a kid. Well, I shouldn't say that. I didn't hate school till middle school.
Mm.
And
Who
then in
doesn't
high
hate middle
school,
school? Like
yeah.
like really. So I like to weave in some stories with, just to keep it fun. But so my youngest child missed seventh grade during COVID. And I'm like, you could not have picked a better
Yep.
grade to
Yep.
miss than seventh grade.
Yep.
So yeah,
My
anyway.
son too, seventh and eighth grade. He pretty
Oh,
much
okay.
missed all of middle school.
Lucky them.
Um, yes, like that's what I said.
Yeah.
But it was in hindsight when I read Ned Hollowell's Driven to Distraction when it first came out, and then I reread it again while I was in graduate school. And at the towards the end of the book, he's got like 100 list item of traits and symptoms. And I checked off almost every freaking box in the book and was
Mhm.
like, oh my God, I really think this is what's going on. And after I graduated graduate school, I actually had my daughter and was pregnant with my daughter before in my last year of graduate school. And after having her and finishing and then thinking, again, high achieving, oh, I really am interested in school psychology. Maybe I'll go back. And I have all this, I want to get, maybe I should get my PsyD and do all of these things. And went back and I struggled really intensely. And I was like, what just happened? Postpartum baby brain,
Mhm.
hormones,
Mhm.
because I was 41 at that
Mhm.
point. And finally was like, what am I doing? Just stick with what you're doing, stay on track. I went from hating school to now couldn't get enough learning and was like, if I could be a full-time student, that would be the greatest job in the world. And then went and saw a psychiatrist and who confirmed it and said it's not unusual for someone like yourself. And as a child, Gen Xer growing up in the 70s and 80s, I was not the typical picture. So no one was looking at me.
Right. Women
Yep.
typically weren't the picture. I mean, that was
Nope.
it. I'm also 1970s, and I have a half brother who was diagnosed with ADHD and had to be put on Ritalin to stay in the classroom. And so when my ex-husband accused me of having it in my 30s because he was a college professor, I was like, I don't have ADHD. I can sit still, and
Yes.
I'm like, I'm kicking myself, by the way, because I think of the years that I would have been a better mom if I had known that these were my struggles. But here we are. And that's actually a big part of who my audience is it's really the Gen X, the boomers, silent generation who are putting the pieces together. And there is the grief of, I wish I had known. And then the
Yep.
relief of, oh, I am not crazy. This is what it's been the whole time. And that's really a big part of this message is for other people to hear. I've been there too. I understand your journey, and here's where we go from here. So anyway, I like to,
Yes.
weave those personal stories into it. Okay, so you read Dr. Ned Hallowell. By the way, if you're listening to the podcast for the first time, I mentioned him quite a bit. He was in medical school when he discovered his own ADHD, and he has written books, and he's like the guru in the
Yeah.
space. My very first ADHD book was ADHD 2.0, which was also his book, and it was just a later
Yeah.
version of it. So,
It's a
and
good
then I
book.
listened to his podcast, which discontinued. But yeah, so a lot of people, he is the first exposure into ADHD, but he has 3 ADHD children. They're all super successful. And I love that he, like we are really destigmatizing what ADHD, to your point, oh, you can't have ADHD because you're smart. Yeah. As you guys can
Yeah.
see, nodding heads.
Yes.
Um, most
And
people
female.
listen. Right. And it also presents so differently in female
Yes.
I mean, I actually am combined presentation. So I
I think
am
I am too.
okay, I'm hyperactive as well, but I wasn't the little boy that couldn't sit still in the classroom and
Same.
was disruptive. I was a little girl who wanted to talk to everybody and would interrupt people or would always have my hand up because I knew the answer, but that wasn't a quote unquote behavior issue. And so it never got addressed.
Yeah. My hyperactivity was more internal. There were times where it was external, but I think it would have presented itself more if it wasn't for the arts. My mom had me I was in ballet, and that was an amazing vehicle for me. If I hadn't had that, and I grew
Mhm.
up in the country and we all just ran amok outside every day, all day. I mean,
Right.
that made all the difference in the world for me, I
Yeah.
think.
I think that was our generation too. I mean, we didn't have the cell
Yes.
phones. Our parents weren't tracking us. And it'd be like, go out and be home when the lights come back on. They didn't know where we were
Yes.
going. Well,
That's
yes.
exactly
So we
right.
were
Yeah.
right. We were the most underparented generation of any, which is why I heard that we did so well during COVID, because just leave us to our own defenses and we're out there. But to that point, I have heard that physical activity and being outside are so beneficial to an ADHD brain. And we're depriving these kids these days of the way that they have to sit in the classroom. And I'm not addressing what's happening with kids because there's so many people talking about that. But I did want to just mention it.
Yes. Yes. It is definitely something I do with my parents. I don't work with kids anymore. I only work with adults, but I have associates who work with kids, or I will work with families or just parents. And yes, it is. And I'm having two children of my own who are not naturally inclined to want to be doing things outside all the time. It's a battle to get them
Mm-hmm.
out.
Oh,
Um,
uh-huh.
yeah.
Well, we didn't have
But yeah, I mean,
entertainment in our no, I was gonna say we didn't have entertainment in our hands at the touch of a, we had to wait until TV came on that night. So, very,
yes,
very different lifestyle. I did interrupt you. I'm sorry. I tend to do
it's
that.
okay.
You've never heard that before, have you?
No.
But I interrupted you and you were talking about finishing grad school and
So
you
I
had
finished,
your daughter. Okay.
yeah, I got my official diagnosis. I was even tested growing up, I think unidentified with ADHD and not liking school. I think because I wasn't learning the way I should have. I also assumed I wasn't smart. I heard a
Mhm,
lot of like, Kristen's not working to her potential. Kristen's
mhm,
lazy. I mean, it was
mhm.
just all of that come middle school up. And then when I got tested by the psychologist, I got tested as gifted. And that I had to wait till I was 40 something years old to be like, oh, I'm not crazy. I am not dumb. And all of these things that I just wasn't learning in an environment that was able to teach a learner like me. It was art school was when I did really well because I was
Mhm,
around the right people and I thrived. I
mhm,
changed high schools my senior year and went to an arts high school, and everything changed for me from that point on.
mhm.
And it's just really, and I talked to my own parents about this in my practice of making sure that your kid is in the right learning environment.
Motivated
Because,
and interested.
yeah,
Absolutely.
the neurodivergent were wired differently. So we sometimes learn differently.
Absolutely. I love to give this example of, in fact, one of my headshots is me with a dead plant. And I did not go out and buy that dead plant. That was just a plant that I picked up from the side of my house because that's the common. When I would bring plants into my house when I was married, my ex husband would literally hum the funeral procession because I couldn't keep the plant alive. But we moved into this house 2 years ago, and I am obsessed with hydrangeas. And I went to Trader Joe's and I bought their beautiful hydrangeas when they were in season. And then I stuck it in the ground and replanted it. And I continued to water it and care for it. And then I got the most beautiful hydrangea. I mean, it was like, okay, in fairness, I lucked out with the color, but I gave it attention because I was interested. So it is not about our ability, it's about where our interest lies. And that's
Yeah.
just a really good way of driving that home.
Yes.
Okay. You have so much that I want to talk about. I don't even know where to begin. So, you tell me what of the CBT, and how did all of that come about? Yeah. So tell me all of that.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, my graduating thesis was on postpartum anxiety.
Mm,
Anxiety is something that I struggled with my entire life. And really wasn't until I got this ADHD diagnosis that I understand how connected the two were, right? It was at the time, since I was still in school and didn't completely know about the ADHD yet, I again pick a topic that's going to be of interest because I'm going to be stuck with this for almost 2 years, right?
mhm,
At that point, had experienced some of that post having my daughter, but throughout the majority of the process of my thesis, I was pregnant and lost my mom at the same time.
mhm,
And so it was definitely, I thought, like, this will be an area I'll stay inside these lanes. And then after graduation, after having my daughter, surviving that whole process, and went into training after school, getting my hours. Those of us MFTs, we have to get 3,000 hours in order before we can sit for the licensing exam. And in general ADHD, my fashion of, okay, what's the quickest I can do this? And it's 2 years. And I, in 2 years, got all 3,000 hours and did
wow.
whatever I could
With two young
but
children.
with two young children. Yes. Thank God
Wow.
bless my husband.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate to not have to worry about working at the time so that I could get all my hours done. But more than anything was that in that time period, I think it was very beneficial that I had a former career and a career that I learned how to sell myself. I learned about business development because in graduate school, teachers and professors and everyone saying private practice is really hard. I don't recommend it. Da, 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 da. And a few of my other friends who were also in my age bracket, we were all like, we had no interest in working for the Department of Mental Health or clinics or agencies. We all wanted to have our own practice. And so I was sort of very driven. Again, my ADHD rebellious, like, you tell me I can't do this, then that's the very thing I'm going to go do, right? I'll
Mhm.
show you. And after getting my hours and learning more and more, and I first started diving into the prenatal and postpartum anxieties, difficulty with pregnancies and all. I had experienced some of that of my own before having my daughter. My son was very easy. And so it was just like, do what you know. Right.
Mhm.
But then the more I started learning about ADHD and all neurodivergence and started uncovering of how deeply it is in my family, my husband's family, it really became a passion of mine of wanting to know more
Mhm.
and really seeing how I had a mentor who taught me the very thing you're dealing with is going to walk through that door in your
Mhm.
clients. She was so
Mhm.
right. And I felt
Mhm.
like the more I was learning about ADHD, the more I saw it walk through my door with my peers more than anything else. And then I was like, this is going to be my area, my niche. And in that time, when I was in graduate school, I was very drawn to CBT. I was very drawn. I was always a person of like, show me the evidence. I need to see, something that has research or science behind it. It was very, been in architecture, like I needed the proof. When I was younger, I think I was a lot more naive and very more in touch with, oh, the universe and spirituality and all. And over time that shifted for me. I think graduate school did that a little bit, but I was, of all the models, I was drawn most to CBT. And
So I
so
Yeah, tell us because a lot of people don't even know what that is, and this I'm so you wrote the book. So what is CBT?
So cognitive behavioral therapy is the approach is that our thoughts drive our emotions and then our emotions drive our behavior. And
Mhm.
I think particularly in the world of ADHD, it's really helpful to look at managing ADHD this way. It is why it is considered the gold standard therapeutic practice in ADHD. Our particularly someone who had anxiety, thoughts were a driving force for me,
Mhm.
and really understanding how much our thoughts influence how we feel and that how much those feelings influence the actions and behaviors we're going to do as a result. If we can get to the thoughts and start to understand positive and predominantly negative thoughts and where they come from. So CBT is, let's look at those thoughts, they're negative thoughts. Let's challenge them by finding the evidence. Let's find this proof, this claim of I'm not smart enough. Where is that coming from? And in general, the idea is you find I don't have any real legitimate proof for this. So let's reframe this into something that is more positive and realistic that works for
Mhm.
the individual, right?
Mhm.
And if we think good, we feel good. If we think
Mhm.
bad, we feel bad. And I mean that's oversimplifying it, but that is the general nuts and bolts of it. I think what I love about it with ADHD is that a lot of us, as we were just talking earlier, I thought I had proof that I wasn't smart enough, right? I wasn't doing well in certain
Mhm.
grades at school.
Mhm.
And a lot of individuals with ADHD feel they have proof to support this belief system that we call it core beliefs that we wind up with as adults.
Mhm.
And that belief system goes far back into infancy, and some may even believe before that. So it's not so much of, okay, well, yes, Kristen, I think I have proof to support this claim. So now what? So then I ask a client, I would say, well, let's challenge that a little further and say, yes, but how old is that proof? Right. And is it
Mhm.
really proof at the end of
Mhm.
the day? Just
Mhm.
because
I
you
love.
didn't do well in school is not proof that you're not smart. Right. And so it's just unpacking it even further. And then as a result, I think it beautifully moves into, were there any traumas and what we call developmental complex trauma, which is very common for our generation to have experienced, not being identified with ADHD. There's a statistic out there that by the age of 11, an ADHD child will hear 20,000 negative messages.
Wow.
And that's only by the age of 11.
Right. Ah.
And particularly in the 70s and 80s, when it was all about laziness and not potential, I'm sure we heard even more than that. And that impacts the young brain in a really considerable way and can create trauma. And then ACT is just another like CBT 2.0, taking it more to the level of acceptance, and I will pull from that. And then really it was during the pandemic that I decided to involve my love of integrative and functional health into the mental health world and became certified as an integrative mental health practitioner, which means I can look at the whole person, right? I can look at beyond the brain, beyond the mind. We know that ADHD is a neurobiological condition that affects the body and the brain, and that there are real deficiencies that are associated with individuals with ADHD, low micronutrients and deficient micronutrients and minerals, magnesium, vitamin B, D, C, zinc, iron, copper, all of it tends to be out of whack for the
Mm.
majority of the neurodivergent population. And I wanted to learn more. I discovered so much of that on my own, in my own journey with a functional medical doctor. And it all just made so much sense to me that I thought this is going to be so helpful. It helped me incredibly. And I thought it was just really going to help my clients. And I was so glad that I did that certification, because it is the crux now of pretty much what I do with the work that I do with my clients. And it's really impactful and has helped a lot of people manage this more successfully.
I love that. And you are so far the only person that I've ever spoken with who's talked about that. So I definitely want to take a break and come back to that conversation, because one of the questions that I want to ask you, and I'm going to have you hold your thought, is a lot of people are hearing, especially older adults, that they cannot take stimulant medication or they're not eligible for medication. Part of it is the professionals not having the right knowledge. And part of it can also be that there are other health issues going on. And so this could be a good alternative. So I definitely want to talk to you about that. Before we take a break, I like to share that this podcast is a labor of love. I mean, it is my passion. It is spreading awareness, destigmatizing ADHD, but I also have to keep the lights on. And so when I go to that break, you will hear a little bit about Silver Linings Transitions, which is have you ever heard of senior mood management before, Kristen?
I have, yes.
Okay, good. So a lot of people haven't. We're part of a national association. So if you're listening outside of the San Diego area or Coachella, you can find somebody that does what we do. But basically, moving is one of life's biggest, most stressful events, and it involves a lot of executive functioning. And a senior move manager or specialty, because we do anybody, you don't have to be seniors, will go into someone's home, break down the entire move, guide them through the process. And my tagline in San Diego Silver Linings is, we make moves magical and I carry a magic wand. So you're going to hear a commercial about that. And then I'm also just going to encourage you that if you are enjoying this podcast, I would appreciate it if you would subscribe to the podcast, like it, and share it, because that is what we're needing to do to spread the message that ADHD isn't just for hyperactive little boys. And one of the things that I know, maybe you can confirm this, Kristen, is that 80% of people who have ADHD don't realize they have it. Have you heard that number? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And then it could be 6-ish% of the population. I'm not sure. That's also, who knows, right? Especially in the US.
I think it's more. Yeah.
Okay. I wouldn't be surprised. Okay. So we're going to pause and then I'm going to ask you that question. And then I don't know if you've listened to this podcast before, but I stole Penn Holderness's line, which is if you could press the off button and never have had ADHD, it's gone. Would you press it? So don't answer that because we're going to come right back after a word from our sponsor. I used to dread visiting my mother. Because of the clutter, the piles, the chaos, we all experience clutter differently. For me, it was a source of anxiety and stress. I'd try to help and she'd get defensive. We were both frustrated and it was destroying our relationship. Then we discovered something that changed everything. My mother had ADHD and she'd been living with it undiagnosed for over 76 years. Suddenly, it all made sense. The clutter wasn't laziness, the disorganization wasn't a choice. Her brain was wired differently, and no amount of willpower or traditional organizing advice was ever going to work. That discovery became my life's work. It's why I started the Grandma Has ADHD podcast. It's why I became an ADHD coach and specialist. And it's why I am so passionate about helping women like my mother and maybe like you. Because here's what I know. Clutter affects us emotionally and physically. It damages relationships, it creates shame spirals, and the overwhelm of not knowing where to start keeps you frozen. But it's okay to ask for help. In fact, it's brave. If you're in the San Diego or Coachella Valley area, my team at Silver Linings Transitions can come to your home. We'll help you tackle the clutter with compassion, not judgment. I also work with women virtually through one-on-one ADHD coaching. And if you are overwhelmed with clutter, I can connect you with trusted resources in your area. Visit jamishapiro.me to get started or grab my book, This Explains So Much, on Amazon. My mother and I got our relationship back. You can get your peace back too. That's JAMISHAPIRO.me. Moving can feel overwhelming, whether you're downsizing, relocating, or helping a loved one transition. There are so many decisions to make, details to handle, and emotions to navigate. At Silver Linings Transitions, we believe every move should be magical, not stressful. We're more than movers. We expertly guide you through the entire process and do our best to alleviate your concerns. From the moment we meet, you'll feel comfortable because we will listen to your needs and wants and work together to create a personalized plan that honors your memories and your cherished belongings while helping you embrace your next chapter. We visit your new space and create a detailed floor plan, ensuring your furniture and treasured belongings will fit safely. We handle the logistics so you don't need to worry about anything, from sorting and packing to coordinating the sale and donation of unwanted items. Our professional team uses efficient, eco-friendly bins and handles every detail with care. We coordinate with our vetted moving partners, oversee the logistics, and ensure nothing is left behind, even packing your refrigerator items. Here's where the magic happens. We don't just unpack. We recreate the feeling of home. Using photos from your previous space, we thoughtfully arrange your furniture, hang your pictures, and set up your kitchen and bathroom so everything feels familiar from day one. When you walk into your new space, it's not just moved in, it's home. Your coffee pot is ready, your favorite photos are perfectly placed, your bed is made, and your new chapter begins with comfort and joy instead of chaos. This is how Silver Linings Transitions makes moves magical. We handle the emotional lifting and the logistics so you can focus on what matters most, settling into your new home. Because every move deserves a silver lining. Hi, I'm Jami Shapiro. I am an ADHD coach and the founder of Silver Linings Transitions, where we do home organizing and move management. And, I did not know that I had ADHD for years. And I remember personally hiring an organizing company to come in and help me because I could just never get it together. And it really wasn't until I understood ADHD and its impact that I realized why. And so I wrote a book, This Explains So Much, Understanding Undiagnosed ADHD, because I just feel like there's so many answers that people don't even know that they're looking for, especially generations of women who grew up thinking that ADHD was just for the hyperactive little boy. It turns out it's not only a body that can be hyperactive, but it can be a mind that's hyperactive. So you can have a wonderful day and you can have something wonderful happen, and then that one negative thing that happens is going to be the thing that takes you into that spiral, and it's going to be keeping you up at night, and you're going to be ruminating on it. And I think that, we as women carry so much shame and so much how it's supposed to be. I'm supposed to have it together. And I remember that was the case for me. I remember, how is it that all of these women have so much consistency and their kids get the sticker charts and everything seems to run well, and I'm the one that's missing parent-teacher conferences and my house, is always in chaos. And then again, that negative self-talk. So my mission is really to educate people who have no idea that ADHD has the impact that it does. And it's to connect you to other people who get it and who will make you feel that you aren't alone, you're not crazy, you're not lazy, you're not stupid, you're not too much. You just have a brain that was wired differently. And I can't wait for you to join me in the community that I'm building, the workshops that I'm creating, the book club that I'm hosting, because I know that I am going to make a profound difference in your life. And we are back with Kristen Baird Goldman. And so I asked you one fun question, which is the button question. Would you push a button and not have ADHD?
Well, that's a tough one. I don't think so. I don't think I would. If you had asked me that in the midst of my roller coaster of perimenopause, I would have said yes. Push it. How fast can I push it? Because it really does. The connection between ADHD for women and hormones is very significant. And even in menopause, I'm still struggling. And so if you asked me that a couple of days ago, I might have said, I might push it, but it's a part of us. It's a part of who I am. And so I think in the grand scheme of things, I don't think I would be able to accomplish and do the things that I'm doing without it. Could be wrong. Maybe I'd even be more successful. I don't know, but it's all I know. So probably not.
Yeah. I always say, I think we're a lot more fun. In fact, when I ask somebody if they have ADHD, I'll usually preface it with, this is the highest compliment that I can give to you, which is to say, because we're not vanilla. There is no vanilla. And I think that I like that sparkle and that excitement. And it's interesting because I have only had, of the 80 something interviews I've done, maybe more, only one person has said that they would not push the button, or said that they would push the button. I'm sorry. And everyone else finds their way. Like, yes, there are goods and there are bads, but part of this podcast is what you resist persists.
Yes.
And so it's like, here I am, I have it, and I need to lean into it because, and I really like Dr. Ned Hallowell talking about learning to use it and to fine tune it as a craft. And I know that there are people who don't like when we call it a superpower. And one of the things that I know is true, and we talked about in the very beginning of the episode, is that you have the overachiever and then you have the underachiever. And I do feel badly for the people who didn't get the proper diagnosis and it ended up in a system that failed them. And when you look at incarceration rates and you look at higher incidence. So I don't want to gloss it over and make it look like it's this shiny, pretty thing, but it is what it is. And so I appreciate your answer.
Yes.
Okay. So back to the bionutrients and the supplements and the deficiencies and zinc. And okay, I would love to hear a little more about that because as I shared, some of the people listening to this podcast are not candidates for medication.
Yes. And that is predominantly one of the main reasons why I went down that path, because I was one of those people. I could not tolerate the medications at all. I can't even handle caffeine. That was one of those aha moments of what else is there? And that's when I discovered Dr. James Greenblatt, who wrote Finally Focused. And he is one of the premier functional psychiatrists in the field. And that book changed everything for me. And the more I learned about the micronutrients and things to look at and what's associated with ADHD, and I couldn't get enough of it and wanted to get more training. I reached out to Dr. Greenblatt, and then I went and did the certification with Dr. Leslie Korn to get the certified integrated mental health professional. I'm now in the process of getting certified with the Institute of Functional Medicine. I think it's so valuable because it's been said that almost half of the ADHD population cannot do meds for one reason or another. And that's a lot of people. That's a high percentage. And as someone who went through that, I think it's important to understand what your other options are. And there are many.
So but there's so many people who are not educated, medical professionals, about ADHD.
Yep.
They're not diagnosing it properly. Oh, you have anxiety and depression. They're never even touching on the ADHD. As, by the way, if you're listening, Kristen is shaking her head. Yes, nodding. Okay. So where do we go when we want to look into what else we can take if stimulant medication is not the option for us?
It's finding an integrative or functional medical professional, right? And when I say functional, I don't mean like alternative woo-woo, hippy-dippy. These are trained MDs who did additional training. I don't know if any of your listeners have heard of Dr. Mark Hyman. He's one of the premier functional MDs out there. He's been around for decades. He has a fantastic podcast. Andrew Huberman, I know a lot of people know him. While he's not a functional MD, he talks a lot about other things, right? He's big on sleep and light and what you're putting in your body and moving your body. And, it's looking at the whole person. You're not a disease walking in the door. Functional medicine is about looking at the root cause. Let's not slam a Band-Aid on it and cover up your symptoms. Let's get to the root of your symptoms. And so we're going to look at labs and do more thorough, complete testing to identify what's off, what's not working, and then come up with real solutions. Sometimes that might involve prescription meds, and sometimes it won't. And sometimes it might be a combination of the two. But when it comes to ADHD, it's working with either a functional medical psychiatrist or functional or integrative psychiatric nurse practitioner, which there are many of now, who understand that there is an enormous part of the population that can't do medications. Either they can't tolerate them, or they're not allowed due to other medical conditions, or they just don't want to. Those are the people that come to me. If anyone ever has, any of your listeners have any questions, they can always reach out to my practice, and we can, if they're in a different state, we can direct them to where to go.
Okay. That's great. Give us the name of your practice so that they can find you. And also, do you only treat in California, or give us who you treat and how they can find you?
Yes. Currently, the name of the practice is Baird Integrated Therapy. I'm expanding, and it will get bigger in this year. But so bairdintegratedtherapy.com.
And that's BAIRD, Baird.
Yeah,
Integrated
as in
therapy.
boy, B as in boy, AIRD, integrated therapy, all one word, .com. I am licensed in the state of California, so I can only practice in California, but I can also practice in Europe and Australia. It's interesting how our licensing can't cross state lines, but can cross the pond.
We have a lot of issues. I don't even want to
We have a lot of issues.
We do, a lot of them, in a lot of areas as well.
Yes.
Okay.
In Los Angeles, we have 2 in-person offices, one in the Valley in the Sherman Oaks, Studio City, Encino area, and one in Pasadena, and then telehealth all over the state.
Okay, that's very good for me to know because I am in California and I have not really explored. I am on all of the hormones, so thankfully that has been game changing, but I know that there are probably even more things that I can be doing myself. Okay. So I want to ask you, is there anything, well, first of all, there were two things that you mentioned that it doesn't matter where you live or what you can or can't take that are going to help your ADHD, and that's going to be sleep and exercise. And exercise doesn't have to be going to the gym. It can just be moving your body. Because I know a lot of people hate that word. They don't want to do it. And it's especially hard when you're not motivated to do it. And sometimes you just need to stick your shoes on and just do something for 5 minutes. Just the momentum with ADHD. Getting started is so hard. Am I right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I will tell all of my clients food, sleep, movement. Those are the three and environment, four biggest pillars of health that are so impactful. And I think being able to manage ADHD in a really successful way, even if you're on medications, it's still going to help, right? We say pills don't teach skills. So they might be lightening some of the symptoms, but they're not doing any of the rewiring or any of the other necessary things in the brain and the body that sleep and diet and exercise can do, and understanding what your environment looks like.
When you mentioned environment, by the way, I always go to a cluttered environment. Was that what you were referring to? Or
No, so when I say environment, we're looking at more of what we call epigenetics. We are genetics and we're epigenetics. So we're nature, and the epigenetics is the nurture part. So our environment is not only the house that we're living in, but the people we're surrounding ourselves with, our workplace, our communities, our neighborhoods, and people and the actual physical buildings can be toxic and hurt us, right?
Absolutely.
And
for
they
sure.
will flip some genetics or any of the genetic switches that if we're already due to hereditability, is that
Heritability. Oh, look at me.
yeah, there you go. That environmental situations can flip those switches to the negative and the positive, right? We know that I have several clients who I help them get off SSRIs because we know after decades and years of use how harmful they are to the body, and things like some of their other chronic conditions disappeared. So it's definitely looking at nurture and nature is such an important part of the process, and our environment is a huge part of the process. If you're in a toxic relationship, that's affecting your body.
I do want to just put one plug in about the clutter that surrounds us. That visual pollution that comes into us can raise our cortisol levels. And so even just doing a little bit of decluttering, and to put a plug in again, NASA members or members of ICD, which is the Institute for Challenging Disorganization, can also help with that clutter. And that's a huge investment that you can make if you're like, hey, I can't do this on my own. Okay, so is there anything that universally pretty much anybody could take, like magnesium, or that you're nodding your head? Yeah. So
yes.
Okay.
Everyone, particularly those with ADHD, should be on magnesium. The preference is magnesium glycinate. Now, again, I have to preface this by saying I'm not a medical doctor, so I'm not trying to give any medical advice or claim anything's going to occur. But what I've seen in practice and have experienced clients say, and personally, is that magnesium glycinate is extremely well tolerated and absorbed the most of all glycinates. There's also magnesium threonate, but that could be more towards sleep. There's a lot of different magnesiums. There's citrate, malate, there's all different types, but the glycinate is the one that won't cause any GI distress. And like I said, will be absorbed better by the brain and the body.
Is there a time of day that we should take that? I know with one magnesium, I heard like calm, you should take it at night. Is there a better time for magnesium glycinate?
One of the things I will suggest to my clients is take some in the morning and some at night. If you are on stimulants, doing that is very helpful, because what magnesium is connected to dopamine. So its role is to help smooth the delivery of dopamine. And when you're on a stimulant, A lot of them will just dump dopamine at different times of the day, and then you might crash. So magnesium, if you take it in the morning, it will help smooth the delivery. And when you take it at the end of the day or the evening, it will help prevent the crash.
Nice. Well, that's a great tip. Okay, one more hack, and then I'm going to ask you one more question is, what would you say is your most successful coping tool or scaffolding that you've put in place to make life with ADHD easier?
Exercise.
Okay. Okay. And what does your exercise routine look like? Do you do it in the morning?
Yes, I will get up and I'll eat a little bit of a protein, carbohydrate breakfast. And then I've switched my exercise, what I'm doing for exercise in the last couple of years, because we are learning, particularly for perimenopausal and menopausal women, we should not exercise the way we did when we were younger, and that we are not little men, as Dr. Stacey Sims likes to say. Pushing really hard isn't a good idea because it's going to raise cortisol and whatnot. So I will do a combination of strength training and Pilates, and I try and walk every day. I think my morning, if I'm lucky, I'll get in a morning 25-minute, 30-minute walk, and then an end of day 25, 30-minute walk, because so much of what I do is so sedentary. We're sitting all day. That's on a perfect day that I'll get 2 walks in. By any means, that is not something that is normal for me.
Sounds amazing.
It does. It is, I think, that and being outdoors, for me, taking outdoor breaks. We know scientifically how important light is, and that, I mean, that could be a whole topic in and of itself. But I think those, if I'm moving my body and I'm seeing green space and I'm getting outside a couple times a day, it keeps me motivated to keep my systems and my structure in place. And the other thing I think is the biggest thing that helps me is that my philosophy with my clients is to lean in. Don't be afraid to get uncomfortable. The only way I think, can manage ADHD is learning to increase our tolerance for the uncomfortable, because neurobiologically, we're not getting any help, right? We don't have enough dopamine or norepinephrine or whatnot. It's not cycling properly. And so exercise, eating right, sleeping right doesn't always feel accessible because it's so uncomfortable. And so if I have a client say, I don't want to do yoga, it's too slow, then I'll say, then that's the very thing you should be doing. You need to expose your brain and your body to this thing you think is so uncomfortable. And after a while, it won't be so uncomfortable anymore. And then that gets associated with so many other things. So learning how to get uncomfortable, I think, has made the biggest difference. Exercise and being outdoors has been the other part.
Great. That was really helpful. I don't know about you, but I will, like, at the end of the day, if I didn't say something or I wish I had said something, I'll ruminate on it. And I always like to ask my guests, is there something that you wish you had said or wish you hadn't said, so that you can be whole and complete when we have concluded this episode?
You mean for today, for our podcast?
Yeah.
I would say, particularly for the over 40 crowd, is don't try not to get in that time machine. Try not to go back in time. I like to tell my clients, we often will ruminate about things because we want our day in court. And chances are we're not going to get it. And it's learning to let that go, right? I don't know. I myself, at bedtime, in the shower, in the car, will rehearse my day in court with a variety of people or situations. And it's exhausting. It depletes the energy. I think so much of ADHD and regulation, energy is another important factor in all this. And so it is, stop trying to get in the time machine. We like to try and go in the past, or we try and predict what we're going to do in the future. And we're not spending enough time in the present because it's uncomfortable.
I love that. You just gave me the title of the episode, and I always look for the nugget, and I wrote it that's so great. I'm going to just share one other thing that because it brought into mind is Scooby Doo. Do you remember watching Scooby where there was it was the villain at the very end of the episode? And I mention this a lot, but it's so good. There is a picture with a mask coming off the villain, and it says anxiety and depression, and then you lift the mask, and it's undiagnosed ADHD. And it was so perfect. I'll have to send you that meme.
Please.
I love that meme. And it's because you were saying anxiety, we didn't know. I haven't met a single person with ADHD who hasn't had anxiety. Now, right. I'm not a doctor, but that's my sample of hundreds of people at this point.
Yeah, same.
But anyway, I'm so grateful for your time. I think I want to have you back on if you would be open, because you have so much that with the integrative medicine, I'm losing words. End of the day, I'm losing words. I'm keeping it real. You've never lost any words, have you?
Oh my God. There was a few you already helped me with today, so I completely understand.
Yeah, I love it. I love just talking to another person. That's what's so great about our community is that it is so affirming, and it is really important to find your tribe and your people. And I'm listening to you and hearing how bright you are, and you are bright and you have ADHD. So anyway. That's a thing that I've battled with myself. All right. I so appreciate your time. I appreciate all of you who listened. And as you may or may not know, if you've listened to this podcast, I really feel like it is never too late to make the rest of your life the best of your life. And the more you know and the more you understand, the easier and more accepting you will be of yourself. So thanks so much for listening.
Thanks, Jami.
The opinions expressed on Grandma Has ADHD podcast are those of our guests and hosts and are intended for informational and entertainment purposes only. This podcast does not provide medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. The content discussed in this episode is not a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician, mental health professional, or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition or mental health concern. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have heard on this podcast. If you think you may have a medical emergency, call your doctor or emergency services immediately. The host, guests, and producers of Grandma Has ADHD do not assume any liability for the content of this podcast. Listen at your own discretion.